What more can really be said about Mario in 2025? He's not only the face of Nintendo, he's to many the face of video games in general. Besides the countless numbers of games he's appeared in, he's had TV shows, movies of varying quality, and a seemingly endless string of merchandise. It doesn't matter what era of gaming Mario has appeared in, he's managed to appear in something unforgettable, both good and bad.
I hope she made lots of spaghetti.
Revisiting the old school Mario games is a bit of a tired exercise at this point. I've been seeing people do videos on old 2D Mario ever since I was a little kid just starting to watch gaming videos on YouTube. Now that I actually make gaming videos for the website, I might as well throw my hat in the ring and make my state-mandated Mario reviews or retrospectives or whatever you want to call them now. I know I might sound like I'm being negative about this, but I'm not at all. Mario is the man that introduced me to video games and holds a special place in my heart, as he probably does for millions of other kids and adults around the world. In reality, I'm just paying my respects for the character that has inspired so much over the past 40 plus years. God, it's insane that Super Mario Bros. Is turning 40 years old this year. It feels like yesterday the 25th and 30th anniversaries were going on. How the time flies. I'm sure a lot of the history of Mario has been combed over extensively, but I still think it'll be fun to go over briefly for the two people that still don't know. In the mid-1980s, the video game industry was in a horrific spot. A combination of companies making their own consoles, an oversaturation of really low-quality games on those consoles, and the rising popularity of the PC industry with stuff like the Commodore 64 and the Apple II, led to what is called the video game crash of 1983. At that time, video games were considered a fad, something that would captivate people for a short amount of time and die off. Think like Pogs, Beanie Babies, or for my Gen Z viewers, fidget spinners. At the same time the North American console industry was tanking, the Japanese console industry was just starting to gain popularity with consoles like Sega's SG-1000, or more famously, the Nintendo Famicom. After a little rebranding, making the console seem more like a toy instead of a game console, the NES was soft-launched in 1985 in certain markets, and alongside it was Super Mario Bros. Mario himself had been around for multiple years prior to Super Mario Bros., however. He debuted in the original Donkey Kong arcade game released in 1981, but back then he was known as Jumpman. He didn't get the Mario moniker until another arcade game, Mario Bros., was released in 1983. Mario himself was the creation of Shigeru Miyamoto, the man behind many other famous Nintendo series such as Zelda and Pikmin. Funnily enough, though, Miyamoto was not the one to suggest using Mario as the main character in Super Mario Bros. That would be his colleague Takashi Tezuka. Both Miyamoto and Tezuka, along with programmer Toshihiko Nagako, who did a ton of programming for the game, worked together on multiple projects in the 1980s, many of which had some influence on the design of Super Mario Bros. Miyamoto himself has stated that games like Devil World, Kung Fu, and Excitebike were all big in coming up with the ideas that were introduced in this game, such as the screen scrolling as your character moved. It was also stated by Toru Iwatani, creator of the Pac-Man series, that Pac-Land was also an inspiration for the game, something that he says Miyamoto told him personally. Anyways, Tezuka was the one to suggest using Mario as the protagonist after looking at the sales of Mario Bros. In the arcades. Miyamoto and Tezuka mainly designed the levels for the games, and what's interesting is how they did it. Both men would design these levels on graph paper, and Nagako would program those into the game. The music was composed by the legendary Koji Kondo. He might be debatably known for his contributions to the Zelda series more, but what he's done for this game and the other Mario games he's composed for are as iconic as they come. If you went out into public and played the overworld theme from this game, I'd bet that well over 90% of people would instantly recognize it. Mario and Zelda are really tied together almost at the hip, too. Both Super Mario Bros. And the first Zelda were developed at the same time, and actually the fire bars you see in Mario 1 were initially supposed to appear in the first Zelda game. Plus, Koji Kondo composing for both series is another way that they're tied together. As I said before, Super Mario Bros. Was released alongside the NES during its initial sale in New York City in October of 1985. While not a pack-in title with the NES initially, eventually this game, along with Duck Hunt, would be put together in a combo cartridge and be packed in with the NES, creating possibly the most iconic console bundle of all time. Even with this game's high status, what I would like to look into today is how well this game is aged. We see games from this early part of the third generation of game consoles don't really age that well. Once again, let's look at the original Zelda. We see there are a lot of problems with that game that make it a chore to play today. In fact, I would even go as far to say you won't have fun with this game unless you have a guide on standby. So how well does Mario play nowadays? Well, like with all the other games I look at, let's look at the plot first. Well, I say plot, but as most of you know, Mario games don't exactly have a plot. Pretty much any Mario game that isn't an RPG, of course, all follow in some way the plot of Mario 1. The setting of the game is in the Mushroom Kingdom. Here, the leader of this kingdom, Princess Toadstool, is kidnapped by Bowser. It's up to Mario to travel through all 8 worlds in the Mushroom Kingdom, stop Bowser, and save Princess Toadstool. Being that this game is from the mid-80s, I can give it a pass for it being really simple. Obviously the fact it's been constantly reused for almost 40 years is certainly something, but I'll let it slide for now. The one interesting thing about this game's plot comes from the manual, though, where it said that Bowser used his black magic to turn the residents of the Mushroom Kingdom, the Toads, into blocks which are scattered all over the world. So, every time Mario breaks a block, is he killing a Toad? The answer is very clearly no. There's no way that the developers' actual intention was that, but that's a really weird detail, and I mean, can you really blame me and many others for kind of just assuming that? It's so odd. I don't know why they just put that in there. So as Mario, how are you going about saving the princess? It's pretty simple. Just run and jump through each stage, taking care of the enemies and platforming obstacles that are in your way. There are quite a few enemies in this game for Mario to deal with. You have your simple enemies like the humble Goomba, who you take care of with a single jump, and the Koopa, who retreats into their shell after jumping on one. Then there are some tougher enemies like bloopers and water levels, whose patterns are really hard to determine. I mean, I swear, it feels like they're predicting every single move I'm gonna make before I make it, and they just piss me off so much. Bullet bills can also be annoying too, just because they could shoot out when you least expect them to. Then there's the Hammer Bro. These guys are the biggest assholes of the whole game. They're constantly tossing hammers in this arc, so finding a hole to jump on them is really tough to do. Even if you wanted to just jump past them, that might not even work because they just randomly jump and they can just surprise you. They're the bane of my existence. It doesn't help that Mario dies after taking just one hit to any enemy. Thankfully, Mario has some power-ups that can help him out in a little bit. There's the classic Super Mushroom that makes Mario bigger and allows him to take an extra hit. There's the Fire Flower that lets Mario shoot fireballs. I love this power. It kills pretty much anything, even Bowser, which makes it all the more painful when you lose it. Finally, there's the Star, which makes Mario temporarily invincible, although it's quite uncommon to get. These are all extremely helpful tools to get you through the game. Being that this game is from 1985, it's pretty impressive that the game is designed as well as it is. Most of the stages are pretty fun to traverse through for the most part. You get to travel through basic ground levels, treetops, underground areas, water levels, and finally Bowser's fortresses. Not all the areas are winners though. Even though there's only 2 of them, I hate the water levels. They just drag on, and the slow music piece that accompanies them just doesn't help. Some of the castles suck too. The ones that come to mind are the maze-like castles that constantly repeat until you figure out the correct patterns to go in. I have no shame in looking up the correct paths to get through these. They suck. They don't ruin the experience as a whole. I mean, most of the stages are just fine. In fact, many of them have become iconic over the years. World 1-1 is the poster child for how to do a first level in a video game. World 1-2 introduces us to the Warp Zone, one of the few times a secret was actually put into a game intentionally back then. Because of that, we also get one of the most famous glitches of all time, the World -1 glitch. If you enter one of the Warp Zone pipes before it's properly loaded, you get sent here, and it's just an infinitely repeating water level, but still neat to find. World 4-2 is the bane of every speedrunner's existence. Seriously, watch the Summoning Salt video on this stage, it's kind of insane. Let's also not forget the castle stages solely for introducing us to the phrase, "Thank you Mario, but our princess is in another castle." It certainly feels like an old game though. Mario's controls have been refined to near perfection over the years, but here, it feels a little bit stiff. Not Belmont stiff, of course, you can influence yourself in midair, but more in a sense of how you gain momentum. You really feel like you gotta put a lot of effort to make some of these jumps. Plus, this is more funny thing if anything, but sometimes hazards just don't spawn. You'll see this mostly in the castle levels. Like, there's very clearly supposed to be a fire bar at this spot, but it just never spawns in. I'm not one to complain if my life is made easier, of course, but it's still the oddity of an old game. Really, the best way to describe Super Mario Bros. 1 as a whole is with one word. Iconic. So much of this game has been referenced or reused in future games or other media to a staggering degree. That's kind of why this review is a little shorter than previous videos. What else is there really to say? Mario 1 has been analyzed to death for nearly 4 decades. Is there really anything new to add to the conversation besides the fact I suck ass at it? It kind of feels like everything that's needed to be said about it has already been said. However, there's a certain other game that is similar to Mario 1 that does deserve to be talked about for, we'll say, less savory reasons. As with many types of media, if there's success, sequels will follow, and Mario's no exception, even back in the 80s. However, the idea for a sequel wasn't just born from the success of the game. According to Miyamoto, the idea for a sequel came to mind after developing Versus Super Mario Bros. For the arcade. Apparently, the team had so much fun making these super challenging arcade levels enough to make the next Mario game similar in nature. Hell, some of the levels from Versus Super Mario Bros. Even got reused in this sequel. Eventually, when Super Mario Bros. 2, as it was named, was finished and it came time to ship it overseas, Nintendo decided to leave it in Japan. Why is that? Let me let Howard Phillips, a game consultant who was a prominent member of Nintendo of America at that time, describe why in an infamous quote. As I continued to play, I found that Super Mario Bros. 2 asked me again and again to take a leap of faith, and that each of those leaps resulted in my immediate death. This was not a fun game to play. It was punishment. Undeserved punishment. I put down my controller, astonished that Mr. Miyamoto has chosen to design such a painful game. End quote. Yeah, this game is really fucking hard. So hard, in fact, that at Mr. Phillips' request, the game was kept in Japan and Nintendo reworked a different game to be the Mario sequel that we got in America. We wouldn't see an official release of the original Mario sequel until 1993, with its inclusion in Super Mario All-Stars. It goes under the moniker Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, and that name has stuck throughout the years when talking about classic Mario, and what I will be calling it going forward. Now at the outset, Lost Levels looks extremely similar to Mario 1. Most of the sprites remain exactly the same. That's not to say there aren't any differences. I mean, just looking at the background and foreground, you'll see that there's a difference. You're actually walking on a ground this time, and it's not just blocks for one thing. Also, everything has eyes. Clouds, bushes, the mushrooms. I mean, it's tradition now that in a Mario game, a lot of the stuff in the world would have eyes on it, but in a simpler game like this, it's kind of uncanny. I feel like I'm being watched. The music hasn't changed either. It's all the same stuff from the first game, so nothing really to mention there. It's still good stuff. You'll also notice there isn't any two-player mode. You only get the selection between a Mario game and a Luigi game. It's kind of exactly what it sounds like. You can choose to play as Mario or Luigi. Mario is the same as in the last game, but Luigi plays a little bit different. This is the game where he develops his much higher jump at the cost of walking on every surface as if it was ice. I think I'll pass playing as Luigi. Lord knows I don't need anything else to make this game harder. So would you like to know why there's such a large gap between this video and the last one I made? Well, besides holidays and other real-world events, it was because of this game. I dreaded having to actually play it and experience it in full. When I finally did finish it, I think I can confidently say, without exaggeration, that this is the hardest, most bullshit video game I have ever played. Yeah, I know, I've been talking about other hard games like Castlevania and F-Zero, and I've made similar statements, but I really do mean it here. This game will test your patience like no other game I've played. I guess the developers were really feeling sadistic during the development process, so they decided to take it out on us. Now, the enemy selection stays mostly the same, however there are a few new additions that are real ball breakers. First is the poison mushroom. It's just a mushroom that is ever so slightly darker and it makes you take damage instead of powering you up. A true beginner's trap if I've ever seen one. Shit, even the title demo gets fooled by this. What were they thinking here? Anyway, avoid this mushroom like the plague. Next, there's the red piranha plant. In the first game, normal piranha plants wouldn't emerge from their pipes if you were standing on top of or on the side of them. The red piranha plant will come out if you're standing on the side of the pipe, though. They still don't come out, though, if you're standing on top of them, so you don't have to worry about that. They also move slightly faster than their green brothers, so be wary of that. Finally, the Hammer Bros. Kind of. Most of the Hammer Brothers you'll see are perfectly normal and act like they did in the last game, but there are some that'll charge directly at you while throwing their hammers, because that was the enemy that needed a buff, right? Double fuck the Hammer Bros in this game, Jesus Christ. Even if the enemies weren't bad enough to deal with, good luck navigating through some of these levels. Actually, not even some. Most of these levels is just a test to see how much pain a human can physically tolerate while playing what's supposed to be a video game. It starts off right in World 1, too. What do you mean bloopers can just exist in the sky like this? Springs are fucking everywhere in this game, and many of them which you need to use to make death-defying jumps. Some levels even have this new green spring that shoots Mario super high into the air. Of course, you have no idea where Mario is relatively to all of the platforms, so good luck on those few levels that require you to maneuver across wide gaps using these springs. Oh my god, the wind makes these stages so much worse. This is another new mechanic where Mario constantly gets pushed forward. You can get some sick length on your jumps with the wind at your back, but most of the time, it'll just be there to knock you into an enemy. Good luck trying to be Big Mario in this game. You might see it a lot in my footage, but that's because I have zero patience and save scum this bitch the entire playthrough. If you play this game legit, you'll pretty much be seeing Small Mario the whole game, except for the exceedingly rare instances the game throws you a bone. Cherish those fire flowers early, because it'll hurt that much more once you lose them. Remember the Howard Phillips quote from earlier when he said that he had to take leaps of faith too? He wasn't joking, because this game really expects you to just know that there are Koopas here, waiting for you to jump across this gap. Or it'll expect you to know that there are invisible blocks here to get to higher places. You just gotta figure this shit out on your own, and it's not fun puzzle solving. It's just figuring shit out through brute force. It's ridiculous. I really noticed the game's design start to go super downhill in 4-3. There are some tight jumps you'll need to make to get these platforms. Then at the very end, you have to bounce off this Koopa to get to this small block which leads to the exit. In any other Mario game, this jump isn't an issue, but with Mario 1 physics, dear god, I shouted too many profanities. I don't know how I didn't wake my parents up. Like I said earlier, the Mario 1 physics are fairly stiff compared to even other NES Mario games. In the first game, it was mostly fine as the game didn't ask too much from the player. Now, you have some tight jumps you're gonna have to make, and it feels wrong every time. Also, a new problem arises with the physics, and it's this. Apparently, holding right just doesn't work sometimes. It's not like I'm too tall to get through the clip, there's plenty of space here, but nope, I guess not. What a load of shit. This game's hitboxes are so fucking strange too. There are numerous times where I swore I was gonna take damage or die, but I would end up just fine and jumping off the enemy. On the other hand, there were many times where I figured I'd be safe from an enemy, but end up dying anyway. Like, look at this, you're telling me I died when that hammer was literally in the floor? For real? Finally, after an amount of pain and punishment that would make death blush, we confront Bowser again and save Peach again. There actually is one small interesting bit of trivia in the final castle though I want to mention. Right before you fight Bowser, there's this fake out Bowser here that you can either ignore or kill with the Fire Flower if you're so lucky to have one at this point in the game. This actually is not like a fake Bowser you see in other castles. In reality, this is Bowser's brother. Yeah, Bowser has a canonical brother in the Mario universe. Of course, we never see him again after this, but I think this is a neat piece of lore that's really often forgotten. Like, I'd love to see Bowser's brother just randomly appear in like a new Mario game or something, that'd be cool. Now, a normal human would assume that the game is done after beating Bowser, and that's a fair assumption at least, especially if you've played past Mario games. However, you're wrong! There are actually 5 bonus worlds in this game. World 9 is accessed after finishing the game without using any warp zones, which, you know, it's fair enough, I guess. I'd show you some footage of it, but my ROM crashed when I finished the game, so you're insane if you think I'm downloading and playing a more stable ROM just to show it off, so here's a clip of it I found on YouTube. How do you get to the other worlds, though? You have to beat the game 8 times in a row, and then hold down A and start on the title screen. After that, you get access to worlds A through D. Normally, I'd ask how the fuck anyone would figure that out, but I actually have a more pressing question. Who the fuck played this game 8 times in a row? Who on planet Earth is that keen on torturing themselves that much? Okay, actually, don't answer that question. Seriously though, I can't believe anyone at Nintendo thought that was a good idea. Thankfully, this is fixed in the Mario All-Stars version, as that game automatically transports you to World A once Worlds 8 or 9 are completed. At that point though, do you even want to play more of this game? After all the hardship, all the pain, all the bullshit you have to go through, why play more of it? I didn't for this review, and I think it would also be a waste of your time. In fact, I think that's a great way to describe this game. A waste of time. There isn't much inherently new in this game, and even if you can look past that, it's so brutally hard to the point I can confidently say you will never have fun with it. It's neat to see where some minor aspects of the Mario universe came from, but that's all stuff you could find without having to play this atrocity. If for whatever reason you have an interest in playing Lost Levels, play the version on Super Mario All-Stars. It not only looks better in 16-bit, but it saves after every level, which helps ease the challenge ever so slightly. If you play the original Famicom Disk System version of this game, prepare yourself for a tough-as-nails game that will test you both physically and mentally. This game angered me in ways I haven't felt before, and baffled me with the things it expected the player to perform either under high stress or completely blind. After experiencing this game, I think that Howard Phillips might be the real savior of the gaming industry. If he didn't recommend Nintendo to not release this game worldwide, I think Mario's image would be radically different. Well, with this game not releasing outside of Japan, what was Nintendo to do with the next installment of the Mario franchise? That is a story for next time.